Well, hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching. Thanks so much for joining me for Get Your Life Back. It starts with sleep. And today I'm doing some hot seat coaching. As I mentioned, you guys, I love doing hot seat coaching. And what that is that you have the opportunity to submit questions in advance to me about your unique sleep struggles. And I will turn on my sleep detective mind and I will study your situation. And then I will come here on live and break it down for you to hopefully give you those insights and perspectives that you're looking for to finally solve those sleep struggles that have been challenging for you. So today, Kellie B from California is the individual that submitted a question in advance or several questions in advance to me. And so I'm going to do my very best to give Kellie as much information as possible, hoping that she's going to have loads and loads of aha moments and awarenesses where she's going to be able to take this information and go and help her 7.5 month old baby boy sleep better. So Kellie, if you're here, feel free to pop into the chat as I'm moving through here so that if I'm not spot on with how I'm describing your situation or you need some clarity around some of the suggestions, don't hesitate to offer that in the chat box and I'll do my best to kind of engage with you in that way. Those of you that are listening later, maybe this is something where there's going to be parts of the story where you're going to go, oh my gosh, that's what's happening with my baby. Or you have a friend where you're like, no, wait a second, this is sounding like a familiar story. I got to make sure my friend hears this. So, I do these because I just really want you guys to have accurate and reliable information to make really good decisions on behalf of your baby to get the best sleep you possibly can, because we know we need sleep to build our immunity, to have our proper growth and development, to reduce our stress levels. And all of that is so important, especially right now as we live in the land of COVID and everything else that's going on. Okay, so let me give you some background on this hot seat coaching / sleep detective work I'm doing for Kellie B. So Kellie B has she's from California. She has a 7.5 month old baby boy. And I'm going to kind of lay out what's happening in her life. And then I'm going to give kind of a prescription on how she can manage it. So right now she said that at bedtime, she is definitely putting down her baby boy at the right sleep window, which is great. And she says that he is able to put himself to sleep at the onset of sleep at bedtime. Okay, so that's awesome. So we're starting off on a good foot, Kellie. Okay. She says to him that unfortunately, although bedtime is easier for her, what she's struggling with is that he's waking up anywhere between 1 and 5 times a night. And she said that alone is driving her crazy because it's totally unpredictable. So she might have a couple of nights where it's only 1 waking a night, and then she'll have 3 wakings, and then she'll have 5 wakings. And of course, this unpredictability as a mother, like when you go to sleep yourself that night, I'm sure all of you can relate to this. Like your nervous system is completely alerted, like you're just waiting to have to get up. There's always just this right on the edge of your consciousness that you're going to have to get up and attend to your baby. So what she does when she hears him is she said that she lets him cry for about 10 minutes, kind of hoping he'll go back to sleep on his own. And then inevitably she has to get up and go attend to him. Now, the one thing she didn't tell me that's really critical. So if you are here, Kellie, I would love you to pull into the chat and let me know. What she did not tell me about is after she physically goes back into the room, when he's woken anywhere between 1 and 5 times a night, what is it that you do to help him go back to sleep? Okay, because we know that at the onset of sleep at bedtime, he is totally going to sleep by himself, which means that he's regulating, settling, and soothing by himself at the onset of sleep. So what I want to know is that in the middle of the night, when you do let him cry for 10 minutes and you do eventually go and get him, what is it that you do to help him go back to sleep? Because that is the critical detail that I need to be able to give you the best prescription. I'm going to continue with kind of your story, and then I'm going to circle back for the prescription, but I'm going to give you time to maybe, if you're here, address that. Okay. So the second thing you need to know kind of about her sleep situation is that she has a second child. And so the consequence is that the morning nap is short for baby number 2, but he does get a pretty decent afternoon nap. Now, this is also super common. And in fact, I did a recent Facebook Live on this, which you can find in my Facebook feed if you kind of go down. I think it was about 3 weeks ago, where I did give some recommendations around the parents that have 2 or 3 children. Oftentimes the second and third baby get their naps interrupted in order to go and do activities with child number 1. And I gave some tips and recommendations on how to balance that. Because the reality is there's nothing worse than having to wake a sleeping baby. And there's nothing worse than having to compromise their daytime sleep, because that absolutely does affect the number of arousals you have at night. Okay. So the lack of daytime sleep is one of the reasons why her 7.5-month-old baby boy is having multiple arousals in the night. So one of my first suggestions is going to be, we need to look at a way to make sure that baby boy gets his daytime sleep expectations met. So she told me he does take 2 naps, but I don't know how long each nap is. And I don't know what time he woke up from his afternoon nap. So again, if you're here, Kelly, if you could give me that data, that will help me help you more. Okay. Some more of part of her storyline. She says the consequence of all of this happening is that she as mother, she's so tired all the time. Of course, she feels like she has no patience because she's obviously doing the majority of the nighttime caregiving. Sounds familiar, right? And she doesn't. That lack of patience is kind of hard for her because she doesn't feel like she's as creative with wanting to be playful during the day with her children. Totally understand that. I know I start to lack creativity, patience, and playfulness when I'm overtired as well. And the reality is, she says she has not slept more than 3 hours in over 7 months. And those of you that are here, or even those of you that are listening to the replay, I mean, can I say, like, hello, I understand, right? She's saying, I literally have not slept more than 3-hour chunks for the entire time this child's been alive over the 7 months. I have so much empathy for you, Kelly. I know how hard this is, and I'm hoping to be able to help you today. She said the other thing that's happening to her is not only is she tired and feeling impatient, but she just has, she's feeling just really worn out. And she just has no me time. Right. And, when we as caregivers get completely depleted like that, like, it's so hard to just, all you can do is to dredge your way through the day. Right. And we don't want to live our lives that way. So we're going to help her get some good sleep. And so her big question is, like, all right, enough. Like, I can't satisfy him in the middle of the night, and I don't know why. And I don't know why he can go to bed at bedtime so easily, but then have all these problems at night. Okay. So I'm now going to hopefully break this down in totality to kind of give Kelly as much background understanding of what's causing the struggles and then what she can do. Again, Kelly, if you're here and you want to go in and answer some of those questions that I asked, that would be really helpful. Okay, so what to do? What do you do if you have a child that knows how to do drowsy but awake at bedtime, but keeps having arousals in the middle of the night? The first thing that you need to do is get back to basics. And the first thing is we need to look at how much daytime sleep he's getting. So for a 7.5-month-old baby, typically they are still taking, believe it or not, 3 naps a day. And they will typically be awake from their power nap no later than 5 or 5:30. So they'll have a morning nap, an afternoon nap, and then they'll have some type of late power nap in the afternoon, late afternoon. Typically that power nap is short. It might be anywhere between 20 and 45 minutes. And especially if they have not had great sleep leading up to that nap, it's best that you make sure that the child is awake by 5:30 p.m. so that you can maintain an appropriate bedtime for him. So that would be the first thing. Of those 3 naps, you want to try to be getting as close to 3 to 3.5 hours of daytime sleep as possible. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, but I've got this other child and I'm racing around trying to get this child to the other activities. And yes, this is a conundrum, which is why I did that other Facebook Live and blog on that very topic, because it is tricky. But we have to get creative, right? Because we know we're going to continue to perpetuate the middle of the night arousals as long as we continue to minimize his daytime sleep. So if you don't fill the sleep tank for the child in the middle of the day, it will inevitably cause ragged, jagged sleep cycles throughout the night. So when we're looking at arousals in the night, we have to attack it from 2 angles. We have to say what's triggering it, and we have to go back to managing our daytime to minimize the triggers. And then we also have to come up with a game plan on how we're going to address it at the moment it's happening at 12 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., right? Okay. So filling the sleep tank during the day is one way to manage the daytime triggers. Making sure he's awake from his power nap no later than 5:30 is the second way. If he only takes 2 naps that day, and so you haven't met your sleep tank and he didn't get a power nap, you've got to make sure that when he's going to sleep at the onset of sleep, he's not too drowsy. So she has told me that he does fall asleep at the onset of sleep by himself. But I want to challenge you, Kelly, to really double check to make sure that he's the right level of drowsiness. Because if a child does not know how to regulate, settle, and soothe themselves to sleep at the onset of sleep, then they're not going to know how to do that appropriately and consistently for you in the middle of the night when they have an arousal. So everything about how to manage the middle of the night is directly related to how we are managing our daytime shift and how we're managing bedtime. They're completely correlated. Okay. So the way I describe drowsy but awake is like this. This is my drowsy scale. Okay. So 1 is your child's wide awake. 10 is your child's dead asleep. Ultimately, when a child 100% has their sleep skills, they are able to go into the crib drowsy but awake, 5 or 6 on the drowsy scale, and they regulate, settle, and soothe themselves all the way down the sleepy scale until they're dead asleep, and they can do that without any sleep crutches, and this is at the onset of sleep at bedtime. If they don't know, if they go into the crib too drowsy, like a 7 or an 8 or an 8.5 or a 9.5, if they're going into the crib too drowsy, then all they're really doing is crashing down into Dreamtown, and they aren't, in fact, slowly, gently taking themselves down the sleepy scale. And so when they go into their crib too drowsy, they end up just kind of crashing out. And so then in the middle of the night, when they have an arousal, they don't really have their sleep skills in order to go back to sleep, because they didn't really get to practice them at the easiest time, which is at the onset of sleep at bedtime. Okay, so I want you to go double check. Did he get his daytime sleep? And did I hit his right sleep window? And was he not too drowsy at the onset of sleep? Because if he's too drowsy, then that's one of our other trigger points that's causing the arousals. Okay. So now let's talk about, what do you do about the arousals when they happen? So one thing that she mentioned is that she lets him cry for 10 minutes and then she comes in and does something for him. Now that's where, again, if you're here, Kelly, I would love some details on exactly what you do when he's crying for 10 minutes and then eventually you do go in. I would love to get that detail, because how we attend to our babies in the middle of the night at an arousal is critical to determine whether or not they're practicing their sleep skills in the middle of the night, or where we're just using sleep crutches to help them go back to sleep. Okay. So remember, a sleep crutch is defined as anything that has to be done to or for a child at the onset of sleep at bedtime. They'll typically need some version of that assistance in the middle of the night. So in the middle of the night, if Kelly is rocking back to sleep, replugging the pacifier, nursing back down, bouncing, etc., then she's essentially letting her baby cry for 10 minutes and then going in and kind of rescuing him by using a sleep crutch so that he'll go back to sleep. Now, the problem with that is that in the moment, that seems like the fastest, easiest way to get him to go back to sleep, which I totally understand. Believe me, I understand. But the problem is that you're actually perpetuating the very behavior that you don't want to see, because there's something in behavioral science called intermittent reinforcement, which means that if we attend inconsistently to our children in the middle of the night, then we train them to cry. So what's happening is, as he's waking up, he's crying for 10 minutes, and he's basically saying, hello, is anyone coming? I'd love to have somebody come and help me go back to sleep. And then mom makes her way in, and then she, again, we don't know based on her hot seat form what she does to help him go back to sleep, but let's assume she's rocking him back to sleep. So all he's doing when he wakes up in the middle of the night is screaming for her to come in and do that thing, right? So what you really have to be doing is actually go into sleep coaching mode and say to yourself, okay, in order for me to help him move through these arousals, I have to teach him how to use the same skills he's using at bedtime, which is regulate, settle, and soothe. I have to be able to help him use those same skill sets in the middle of the night, each of these arousals. So you're probably, Kelly, going to have to do about 7 days worth of some sleep coaching, where you really get super deliberate and mindful about teaching him his sleep skills in the middle of the night at those arousal points. Because if he's truly doing it at bedtime, then you're way ahead of the game. Then he'll be able to start practice those skills at those other arousals. So in terms of like, okay, well, what do I do for sleep coaching? Like what do I do? So you're doing something well, because you got him doing drowsy but awake at bedtime. So, you can absolutely, I'm a gentle sleep coach, so I don't believe in cry it out. I think this is the best book to help a baby learn to sleep, without as many tears and without as much drama on your part. This is the Sleep Lady Good Night, Sleep Tight. For her, what I love about this book, especially for you, Kelly, is that you do not have to read the whole book. You have another child, so you're really busy. And I would just go to this section on 6 to 9 month olds, and I would read like those 8 pages. That's all I have to read. And then I would specifically read the section on understanding tears, which I believe is on page 10 or 12. So you're basically be reading less than 10 pages. And you're going to look at your family calendar, and you're going to determine what are the 7 to 10 nights that I can be really mindful and deliberate to read this material in advance and create a sleep plan along with my husband, and then implement that sleep plan for 7 to 10 days in a row while I'm helping my baby boy learn how to bridge and consolidate his arousals in the middle of the night. Okay. That's the only way out of this. Is you're going to have to do some sleep training around it. And you're going to have to also work on all those front end triggers we talked about earlier in the conversation. Some people will say, well, I did cry it out before. I'm just going to do that again. It depends. And again, Kelly, if you're here, I'd love some feedback. 7.5 months of age is a really great time for them to learn to do some sleep training. They tend to learn really fast. They tend not to protest as much, because we can be consistent and they respond really quickly, because their sleep crutches are not as deep as they are when they're like 15 months, 18 months, 3 years of age. Before they're standing in their crib is also a sweet spot. So, you're definitely heading in the right direction. I just think that you need to take about 7 to 10 days and just really do laser focused attention on making sure that you're really allowing him to do drowsy but awake at bedtime. And so that then you're able to attend to him consistently with allowing him by using the Sleep Lady Shuffle, which is the methodology to help him start to practice his sleep skills in the middle of the night. Okay. But I do want to give you hope that you're at the really good time for him to learn these skills and that you're well on your way with some of the things you've already done. And I thank you very much for submitting your question. And if you're here, I'd love to get your feedback and see if there's any details I could provide for you, because you guys, I love doing these hot seat coaches. So, but the more details you offer me, the more I can give you really, really focused, targeted recommendations. And there was a couple of key details that I did need from Kelly that I'm feeling a little bit like if I had those, I could have even gone deeper, because I love to go, I'm all about the details and I'm all about the nuance. So Kelly, you can always start with these recommendations and come back to me next week and ask more questions. I'm totally open to that. Again, you guys, I'm really on a mission to help families not live a sleep deprived life, right? Life is already hard enough. We don't need to also be sleep deprived. I'm going to put here in the chat that if you guys want to submit your own hot seat coaching for next week, which is actually the next time I'll probably be doing hot seat coaching is November 18th. Then you can submit in advance. What I'm doing next week, November 11th, is just as a preview, I'm doing a really amazing interview with Anne McCurnick of Nurtured Noggins. And we are going to be talking about everything you need to know about daycare. Okay, so this is such an important topic, right? Because, living in the land of COVID, so many daycare places have closed down. It's been very difficult to find childcare. And now things are starting to open up a little bit, and you want to be able to reevaluate what's going on with daycare, what you're looking for, what you need to be asking about. And Anne McCurnick is a parenting expert with 30 years of experience, and she's going to have some really great detailed information for us on how to pick the best daycare options for our children. So I want to say thank you so much for being here. For those of you that listen to the replay, if you ever want to ask any questions in the chat, all you have to do is #replay. I'll know to go and see that that's a question that came in later, and I will do my best to answer that. So thank you so much, you guys. Take care. All right. Be well.